Hello, good morning, and welcome to another episode of What Do We Do Now? A conversation about the live industry, the live events industry, in fact. This morning I am joined by Phil. Say hello, Phil.
Hello, Phil. How are you?
Amazing. Phil, tell us a little bit about yourself, and I guess your background, your origin story, how you got started in the live events industry.
Thanks, Dave. Good morning, everybody. I started off in the theatre, in the rep. Actually, my very first start was in the National Youth Theatre. I went and did a stage management course there. They got me to set up a counterweight system, which was I don't think they would do that now. But so I was given a spanner and a bunch of wire and stuff, and off into the grid I went. Then I kind of after school I went to uni for a brief period, and then I sort of started in the theatre as a stage manager. Called my first show, I suppose, about 1980, something like that,
Yeah.
and worked in theatre reps and stuff around the country for about 8 years. And then somebody said, "Do you want to do a trade show?" And I said, "Oh, what's that?" And then when I realized you could actually get paid decent money to do the kind of hours that we're all used to doing, then I thought, well, I'm in for that. And so I kind of did a bit of, yes, I can do that to any job offer that I got. Joined a kind of an agency, and then getting various crew work, and then finally heading for production manager, as I felt with no particular talent of my own. I thought management is perfect for somebody like me.
Very good, very
Um,
good.
yeah, so I did that, and then that was 87. I went freelance. I've always been freelance, and production managing. Then I kind of started doing a few other things. I got involved in a kind of coaching and therapy process called Clean Language, and then I was doing that, and I'm still involved in that, but also started going back more to my original job, which was sort of show calling and a bit of producing as well. So that's what I do now.
Brilliant. And what would you say was your favorite job throughout all of that variety? And it sounds like there's a couple of different sides to what you do there, but what's been your favorite thing and why?
Well, yeah, I think if this is Desert Island Discs, can I have two favorite things? One is what jobs? One was a big Corsa launch down in the Estacio, the old Estacio in Barcelona, and that was
Mm.
a huge job, 60 trucks, and uh, that's a kind of a lot of us for a lot of us that was a big defining moment. I think people of my age who were there. That was just a fantastic job. And then another one, which is interesting, it's a much smaller thing, which was a G9 summit, which was in Birmingham in '98, I think. And I was on Western Park, and I ended up in a room with eight, uh, 8 or 9 world leaders, amongst whom kind of Blair, Clinton, Yeltsin, Chirac, Kohl, whoever the Japanese person was, whoever the Italian was, because they change all the time. And me, I had to play a video, so I had 15 minutes just standing watching them while they were watching the video and listening to somebody talk to them.
Wow.
Uh,
That sounds like
yeah,
a
that was just one of
really,
those moments. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that sounds like a fascinating experience. I suppose with some of your, you referred earlier to clean language, and it'd be great to hear a tiny bit more about that. But in that sort of context, like, did you find yourself sort of applying a few of your kind of filters to what they were doing as you kind of
I
observed them? Like, what
was,
was it
yeah,
like?
I was really watching their body language and how they interacted. Chirac and Kohl, France and Germany, they were just like they were mates. They were really buddyish. Yeltsin was like a bit wobbly, possibly for I don't know, and Blair was like, right, chaps, let's start, and he was kind of very jolly hockey sticks. But the most interesting one was Clinton, because up until that, to be at that point, I only ever seen him on TV, and I thought he was kind of, a wee bit sleazy and wasn't that impressed. But he's just one of those people. When you walk in the room, your eyes follow him. He's just got that charisma, and I thought, now I get it. Now I see why he's president of one of the most powerful countries
And what
in the
and
world.
And so charisma is an absolutely fascinating term, and something that I think in our line of work we see quite often in terms of the people that
Yeah,
are on stage, or sometimes we might see it lacking in terms of the people on
yeah.
stage. But just talk a little bit about that charisma and what it was about. Was it a physical thing, like the way he was he tall? Like what was it? Um,
He was quite tall. He was quite tall, but he had some sort of, it was something about his face. I think he had a very steady look in his face, very kind of twinkly eyed, um, and he was still where a lot of the others were very kind of, hey, hey George, do this, hey, like that. But he just sat there quite quietly and smiled at people, but didn't say that much. But you could see he was really listening and thinking. And I think perhaps there was something about that. What is charisma? If you could bottle it, you'd make a fortune. But you know it when you see it, I think.
I think that's a really interesting thing just to kind of dwell on for a moment, because right
Mm.
now with everything that's been going on, people don't have that same these leaders, the CEOs, the kind of C-level people that we normally deal with in events. They're not necessarily in the same room as people, and they're not necessarily able to actually communicate using their physicality in the way that they normally would. Do you think there's anything different that people need to be a little bit aware of with so many of these people just performing purely to camera at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, they need to be thinking of it that it's a new kind of environment, and there are different tips and skills. I mean, I'm not particularly familiar with it, but so like talking like this, I'm trying to look into the camera rather than look at you on the screen, which will bring my eyes down here. Well, does that help? I don't know, but I'm trying to find. I'm looking for a little good high quality video camera that's tiny that I can put up in front of the picture so that it would be just covering, just under your eyes. So I could be looking into your eyes while and seeing your face, so I can read your expressions and see what you're trying to tell me with the non-verbal communication that I've kind of learned a bit about, as well as the words that you're giving, because those are really really important part of the communication, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So just talk to me a little bit about clean language. I mean, what is it? It's all new to me,
Yeah,
this.
I was doing a bit of self kind of development, I suppose, in the late 90s. I was wondering what I was going to do next. I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in events or not. And I did a bit of NLP, which I quite liked, but was a bit too manipulative and directive for my tastes. And then
And
I came across a
NLP,
guy,
sorry, just briefly, just to.
neuro linguistic programming. So
Okay.
it's a kind of a popular psychology kind of a thing. Got a lot of good stuff in it, but there's quite a few charlatans around in it as well. Um, so the clean language was from a guy called David Grove, who he'd been a quite a well-known hypnotherapist in America. He had, big crowds used to come and see him. But what he noticed was that when he was the typical way of taking somebody through.
Oh, I'm just losing you there now. We did mention about this might happen. So we'll wait, give you a moment to see if you come back, but I have just lost you for now. Um, I'll just give you a couple of moments, just as you got to the good stuff there. Right, let me just bring you back in. Oh, and you're back again. All right. I'm getting you a little bit there, Phil, but I think you
Can you
might
see
need you
me?
to kind of leave the meeting, and we'll just restart that meeting. Just bear with me a moment.
Okay.
Ah, sorry about that. And I think we're back now. We've got Phil back with us. So Phil, you were just ta starting to talk about, I guess, the clean language thing, and you just mentioned about David Grove. But yeah, carry on for us.
Yeah, don't know what happened there. So yeah, so David, he realized that, with a lot of therapies, it's about forcing somebody to go through the trauma that they went through in the past before, and he kind of felt he was actually re-traumatizing them that way. So he just started to develop a language where he wasn't forcing them to do it, and he realized that they work with metaphors a lot. People who somebody who'd been abused would maybe kind of they'd go off into a cloud and they'd talk about this cloud. So he would work with a cloud, and very briefly he would evolve the cloud, and they would get better, but without having kind of to go through all the horrible experience of what happened to them in real life. So that I found that very impressive, and he was a very interesting man, and sort of developing the system that he put together. And then it's been since then. This is like around 2000. It's been developed a lot since then, and it's extrapolated into business as a kind of a thing called clean language, and systemic modeling and symbolic modeling. There's all these kind of phrases, and even a thing called clean interviewing, where the point is you're trying to hold back your stuff as the interviewer,
Mm.
and only work with the stuff that your interviewee is coming across with. And that's really useful, say, in police interviews,
Right.
where
Yeah.
you don't want to mess up their you don't want to put your stuff, your words into their mouth, because
Yeah. Yeah.
when it stands up in court, it'll fall down.
Gotcha. I
Um,
wish I'd known more about this interview technique before I started this, Phil.
no, you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job.
So, but the clean, so
Um,
the essentially, I think if I'm understanding what you're saying is you're talking about, I guess the same, like people listen and hear things in very different ways. Is that the sort of root of
Yeah,
it?
yeah, they do. I mean, I think we if I can do a little I could do a little example for you if you
Yeah.
like. So
Okay. Sure.
for you and whoever's still watching after the break. Um, so I'm going to say a word, and whatever comes into your mind, I'll just give you a second to think about whatever comes into your mind. Okay. So
Okay.
the word I'm going to say is lion.
I think about a lion in a cage.
A lion in a cage. Okay. Whereabouts is the cage? Where's that?
At a circus, like outside a tent.
Okay, okay. And which way is the lion facing?
Towards the front of the cage.
Okay. Yeah. And where are you in relation to the cage?
I'm kind of a diagonally, kind of walking past it. I'm kind of looking sort of out the corner of my
Okay.
eye.
Yeah. And is there anything else about it?
Um, it's kind of gloomy and dark around it.
Hmm. Okay.
It's not bright and doesn't look great.
Okay. All right. Great. So I had a different lion, as you can imagine. I had the MGM lion.
Okay,
Um,
yeah,
and that was on a screen and with the kind of all the sort of the stuff around it, and it's roaring.
yeah,
So it had some sound as well. And everybody watching will have had some slightly different version of a lion. But in conversation, we would kind of say we'd talk about a lion, and we'd go, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean." But we're actually talking about different lions. So now that's a nice simple example. But
mm,
let's say we're talking to a client who's describing during when we're pitching to them and finding out what they want to have. They say, "Well, I kind of see the kind of stage as in sort of something like an arc. It's a bit of an arc." And if we just kind of go, "Oh right, oh, arc, okay," and we go away and design a kind of animals 2x2 coming in, and they come back, and actually what they wanted was a sort of beautiful shiny arc over the top of it, we haven't really done our job. And so with using clean language, you can really get very, very clear very quickly about exactly what it is they're talking about.
mm,
And so not just in with clients, but even like amongst technicians and talking about things like in production.
mm.
Um, so often we get these little misunderstandings about, oh, I didn't realize that's what you meant, but now I've put a lot of investment and time and effort into it, and it's all wasted because it's not what you wanted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I think that, I mean, that
that's one
happens
little
so
area.
often, doesn't it? I
Mm.
think,
Yeah,
there's an awful lot of that kind of miscommunication or misunderstanding that
yeah.
can lead to all kinds of things. I suppose, especially in the situation at the moment, there's a lot of people that are reinventing what they do, reimagining, often on behalf of their clients, like what the best
Mm.
way to communicate is, given kind of the current constraints. Everyone's kind of constrained to just be doing
Yeah.
virtual events. There's people that aren't really able to meet. in person in the same way, and potentially there's a
That's
huge
right.
part of an experience that's missed out on. Are there any of those? I guess there's two sides to the question. There's in terms of clean language, is there anything that people can use to help explore what we think the client actually wants? Because I suppose they're often talking about what they want in the context of a live event, whereas now we're kind of trying to translate that into a virtual space. Um,
Yeah, I think there definitely is, and one of the ways this is a good thing is that it's new. And when things are new, then you've got a chance to try things in different ways,
hmm,
because you can't do it how you used to have to do it.
yeah,
And that's one of the principles of change. Really, is you have to destroy what was there first before anything can be put in its place.
wow, and here it
So
is destroyed in a very fundamental way
in a very
currently.
big way,
Yeah,
yes, yeah, and smart operators are already out there, kind of trying to look at different ways to do it. Now there are models of excellence that we can copy from television and from
mm,
from already existing kind of broadcast models. Um, but how can we configure the shows differently? How can we use this to get away from death by PowerPoint? And how
mm,
can we get away from head and shoulders talking at people? How can
yeah,
we do
yeah,
something different? That means that this is a really good time for the creatives to be listened to and
mm,
to be allowed to try some daft stuff, because that's where you get the new ideas, and that's what, like Paul Dawson was saying, you've got to take risks in that area.
mm,
Um, and uh, so I think that's one of the areas. I think another way is that you can get them to focus a lot more on what it is they're trying to say by asking questions more deeply behind what they say. This is, here are my slides, and this is what I'm going to say. And if you're looking at it quite often as a producer, and you think, yeah, it's not really working actually, then you can start to say, what is the actual message here? What is it you trying to get across? And listen for the kinds of words, the kind of emotional words that really describe what they're actually trying to get across to people, and then
yeah.
work with them to with that to kind of create something that's much more compelling than the straight death by PowerPoint stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's sort of a message in there in terms of distilling their content into that
Yeah,
is essentially what it's about, and trying to
yeah,
remove some of that fluff because we've got so much less time. We've got so
yeah.
much less of people's attention. We don't have a captive audience anymore.
That's right. They don't
Many
want to sit there for 3 hours, listening to it. It's like, get it. Let's get it all across, and I've got
mm,
to get back to the kids.
well, that's
That's
exactly right. And I
yeah,
think we've been doing a few of these for over the sort of recent time, and I
mm,
think trying to many people involved in different ways and
mm,
experiencing all of how to do this in many different ways.
mm.
Um, but I think understanding that you're asking somebody to actually take part in one of these things in their home
Yeah,
is really
yeah.
really important. I mean, do you have anything in terms of how it could be? How to kind of deal with a presenter, or how to kind of help a presenter to get comfortable, when you kind of start to engage with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think as you come online with them, when they're in the kind of studio call section, when you're starting to hear me, I'm getting the jargon now already.
Absolutely.
But when they're starting to kind of get their mic on and get ready, that's when they're at the most nervous, probably. Well, they may build up even to the actual speaking, but so be as natural as possible. So it's like just another
Mm.
Zoom call, really, and compliment them on their background. Perhaps not in my case, because I've got two
That's
13
a
amp sockets and a
lovely
light
13 amp
switch.
socket you've got there.
Isn't it? Isn't it a perfect example? But kind of just chatting to them, really, in a very natural kind of a way to start with, while you're doing the certain things that you need to find out, checking that their connection is okay, and that they've got the technology right, and the door's closed and the cat's already outside, and things that are going to be a nuisance
Mm.
are sorted out.
So it sounds like you've got
And
a job coming up in mind that you're thinking of. What sort of role are you doing? Like, how are you finding that?
Yeah, I am actually doing my first job this year, which is a show, calling a virtual show that's the show's in Spanish, and I've got a couple of languages, so I'm going to be show calling that. At the moment,
Brilliant,
it looks
brilliant.
like I might be doing it from home, which is great
Mm.
and a little bit kind of weird, because I don't show call from home. That's just not something I've done before. But
Yeah, yeah.
that's the whole point about getting on with life, is being adaptable and kind of going, okay, right, this is new, that's
Mm.
fine. Off,
Mm.
let's do it. My great model is my dad.
Mm.
He went through. Some people watching will know he was a prisoner of war and did a lot of stuff to do with, learned a lot about surviving and keeping himself mentally alert, and through 3 years in Italy and Germany, um, and like in his 50s, 50, he was 56. He'd been selling petrol and selling motorbikes most of his business life
Mm.
after the war. He decided to retrain as a chef, cordon bleu chef,
Wow, that's incredible.
and
At what age, sorry,
it's
did you
like
say?
56. Yeah, he was
Amazing.
56. So it's like, really, isn't that, isn't it too late, sort of stuff? But
Mm.
he turned his garage, the lubrication bay became the restaurant, and the big
Deep fat
workshop
fryer
doing
right there.
four motor. Yeah, it was like the oil store was the kitchen. It
Wow.
was amazing, and he ran it really successfully till he retired. And yeah, so it's not too late, and in a way, that's why I'm thinking about this situation now. It's very easy for us to be, with all the pressures on us. We've got to feed our kids or whatever, and you've got a mortgage and all of that. And perhaps a lot of people have come into this, as they did in 2008, a bit overextended, and now it's like, it's really, really scary, and it's
Mm.
properly
Mm.
anxious making time, and it's real. And the first thing you have to do is recognize that that's real, and that this feeling that you got of anxiety is a real thing, and
Mm.
you're entitled to it, and to kind of start looking for the gaps. I think there's a lot to be said about looking for the gaps between things. What's somebody not doing that needs to be done? This is being done.
Mm.
This is being done. But what's something in between that I can find a little niche to make my mark in? Do I want to retrain?
Yeah.
People who were chippies have retrained as IT people. It's all learnable, and not much of it is really rocket science. So you can retrain yourself and do something different. And maybe this is a huge opportunity to say, well, I'm going to have to do something different. So why
Mm.
not do the thing I really want to do?
Absolutely. I think that's such a good message. Things are going to change and have changed and will change very
Mm,
significantly for a lot of
mm,
people in the coming weeks and months. Um, and it's really interesting to hear you just talk about the fear and the anxiety. I think
mm.
this has been quite a positive series, but I think there is underlying a lot of people's messages is that there are things that
Yeah,
people have to deal with that are quite difficult to deal with. And I
yeah.
suppose people deal with that sort of thing in different ways. Is there anything from your kind of clean language background or any of your experience that you can offer to help as people kind of process these things differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's looking out for your pals. The people
Mm.
we kind of know the people who are might be a bit fragile, that they might be a bit tended, they might
Mm.
tend to depression or be a bit anxious or something.
Mm.
And if you haven't heard from them for a while, make the effort and ring them up. Don't assume somebody else has, because they may not have done. And
Yeah,
because
I guess people deal
those
with it
people
differently,
are,
don't they?
they do.
Sorry, go ahead.
There are the people who rant and rave on Facebook,
Yeah.
me. But there are also the ones who turn Facebook off and turn everything off,
Mm.
and pull the blinds down.
Mm.
And yes, that's a way of coping, but sometimes it's a way of hiding that you're not coping, and that's not the same thing. So it's kind of trying to make sure that everybody that we know is kind of getting through this, that we all get through it together, and so that, because it will improve. I mean, it'll be different, but 32 years of freelancing, I've seen a few recessions, and what happens is that something hits. Everybody that was overextended, like the little agencies and stuff, who only had one client and the client's kind of gone bust or something, they have to, they usually go bust, and they have to do something different or go and join another company.
Mm.
There's a lot of chaos and confusion, and then it settles down, business starts to pick up again in a year or two. It might take 10 years to really get back to where you were, and you think, oh, thank goodness we're back, we're fat and happy now. And then bang, something else happens. And that, so my thing from this one is, right, so how can I not be caught out next time? You know, you can't predict the future. We think we can, but we're not terribly good at it in terms of accuracy. Um, but kind of saying, okay, this time I don't want to have a lifestyle that I can't really afford. It's the Mr. McCorber thing a little bit. You know, you got to have some fun, but if you're then going to be in penury and in real difficulty when things take a downturn, which they will at some point, um, you know, it's maybe just have a bit of it salted away. So
Mm,
yeah.
that's very, very, very sensible advice. Um, just kind of in conclusion, um, other than that, what is kind of, there's a question I've been asking everybody, what is
Mm.
the best piece of work advice you've ever been given? Or in fact, do you have a message that you think in particular could be helpful? And so much of what you're saying, I think could be very helpful for people, but is there something in particular you just want to finish with?
Um, I think in work, I think it's really important to be clear, you know, and like firm, fair, and cheerful. That's my little kind of thing. You know, enjoy your work, but be really clear about what it is you're trying to do, and but be fair with people. So give
Mm,
credits where it's due, take responsibility when that's due,
mm,
um, and and I think this whole session, this whole kind of period, has taught us about how much we actually quite like what we do, and we
absolutely.
enjoy our community of people. And I think
Mm,
so. I think that's strengthened. I think it's actually strengthened us as individuals, and I think it'll strengthen the industry eventually, because now there is a sense of community where before it seemed a bit more disparate. I don't think we necessarily knew we had what we had.
mm. No, absolutely. Thank you very much, Phil. I think that's been a very, very, really interesting to hear your thoughts on this. We'd love
No
to hear
worries.
from different people across the industry, so please do get in touch with me. And we've got people booked in for the next couple of weeks already, so seems to be something that people are interested in, and I love every single conversation I've had. So thank you, Phil. Just say goodbye for now.
Yeah, thanks very much. Goodbye for you. Thanks to you, Dave, for all you're doing because it's appreciated.
Cheers, Phil. Take care. Bye bye.